Hello, we would like to welcome you to our 7th Quiz Bowl. We're very happy to have students from Daniel Hand High School here and also Guilford High School. There will be 2 rounds of questions. Each of the 2 rounds will consist of 45 toss-up, 10-point type of questions. The 45 questions in each round will be made up of a variety of topics or subjects. At the end of the 2 rounds, we will have a short final round consisting of 3 final round random bonus questions, and they will be worth 20 points each. At the end of round 1, each team may substitute 1, 2, or 3 team members. At the end of round 1, we will take a brief break to set up for round 2, but if possible, team members, please remain seated in place so we don't have to go through the mic checks and go through all that again. Round 1 will have 45 questions from a variety of subjects and topics. The 45 questions will be toss-up questions with 10 points each. Next, we will start with the competition. So this is question...
One question?
Yes.
How does the buzzing work?
Oh, excellent question. The buzzer system will work. You should let me try to read most of the question first, and then if you buzz in. But Michael will know who buzzes in first because it will tell him. So I may have to turn to Mike and say, is it Madison or is it Guilford?
Okay. So you're not going to lock it?
No.
Okay.
I'll keep it open, so.
All right.
And again, the buzzer system never works perfectly. We'll just do the best we can. In fact, I even bought a backup system, but we'll just use this one. So, are we okay on that? Mm-hmm. Okay. This would be the first question. This thinker introduced a distinction between primary and secondary qualities of objects in a work that argues that the human mind is a blank slate at birth. For 10 points, name this English author of an essay concerning human understanding, who also wrote 2 treatises of government.
John Locke?
Yes. In one section of this novel, Dr. Seward speculates that the mental patient Renfield is trying to absorb the lives of animals. Lucy Westenra grows weak after this novel's title character arrives in London. For 10 points, name this Bram Stoker novel about a Transylvanian vampire.
Dracula?
Dracula, yes. This man was the first since George Washington to hold the rank of lieutenant general. In the Civil War, he proposed the Anaconda Plan. In the Mexican War, he landed at Veracruz and captured Mexico City. For 10 points, name this Whig politician and general known as Old Fuss and Feathers.
Winfield Scott?
Winfield Scott.
Can I just ask everyone, would we prefer to just buzz in as soon as we know the answer, or should...
It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
I think we should let him finish reading the question.
Okay, all right.
Everybody's okay?
Mm-hmm.
Fine. The question 4. This general, and Erich Ludendorff, commanded German forces in the East at the start of World War I. Later, after being re-elected in 1932, he appointed Adolf Hitler chancellor. For 10 points, who was the president of the Weimar Republic at the time? All right, that'd be both sides no? Paul von Hindenburg. The next question, I think would be better if you read it on the monitor. Excuse me.
Um, 10 and 1/3 gallons.
Exactly. Question 6. This branch of mathematics is the namesake of a mean that, well, you can read it. This one.
Geometric mean?
Yes, yes, geometry or geometric mean, or, yes, that's an acceptable answer, yes. Google Maps has recognized Russia's annexation of this Ukrainian Black Sea Peninsula.
Crimea?
Yes. This daughter of Polonius goes mad and drowns herself, which helps convince Laertes to kill Hamlet.
Ophelia?
Yes. Name this ocean that was actually first seen by the expedition.
Was the Pacific?
Yes.
Wait for him to read the thing.
We're good?
Yeah.
Name this set of rules governing the method of communication between computer networks, abbreviated IP.
Internet protocol?
Yes,
Michael,
yes, yes.
just do it. There's no losing point.
This novel's protagonist feels triumphant after a thrown pine cone causes a squirrel to flee. A loud soldier named Wilson helps this novel's protagonist to retrieve a flag. Henry Fleming appears in, for 10 points, what Civil War novel by Stephen Crane, whose title refers to a battle wound?
Red Badge of Courage?
Red Badge of Courage. This president's Supreme Court nominations included Edwin Stanton. His vice president, Schuyler Colfax, was involved in the Credit Mobilier scandal, and his secretary, Orville Babcock, was a member of the Whiskey Ring. For 10 points, name this 18th president and former Civil War general.
Grant.
Yes, Ulysses Simpson Grant. Since 1896, this borough has been anyway, let me skip it. With Kings County. Sites in this area include neighborhoods of Bushwick, Bedford, Stuyvesant, Williamsburg, along with the boardwalk at Coney Island. The NBA's Nets play in, for 10 points, what most populous borough of New York City?
Brooklyn?
Brooklyn. Exactly. Quoting Theodore Parker, this man said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." After marching from Selma to Montgomery, he said, "I've been to the mountaintop," shortly before he was killed by James Earl Ray. For 10 points, what man gave the "I Have a Dream" speech?
Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King.
Jr.
Exactly.
To be fair.
A man in this musical sings, and you don't want me to sing, I'll guarantee you that. A man in this musical sings, "There's a grief that can't be spoken while looking at empty chairs at empty tables." A mother in this musical remembers, "When hope was high and life was worth living." I Dreamed a Dream. Fantine appears in, for 10 points, what musical about Jean Valjean?
Les Mis.
Exactly. This 3-letter word denotes the falling tide. Its counterpart is the flood tide.
Rip?
No.
Good guess. Go for it.
Ab.
What did you say, please?
Ab.
Ebb tide, exactly.
Just say it. You don't lose points if you get it wrong.
The losing army at this battle was commanded by Edward Pinkerton. The victor here was aided by the pirate Jean Lafitte. This battle was fought 2 weeks after the Treaty of Ghent was signed. For 10 points, what 1815 battle of the War of 1812 was won by Andrew Jackson at a Louisiana city?
New Orleans?
The Battle of New Orleans. This singer's album, A Man and His Music, includes Nancy, a song named after his daughter. In 1980, this man released a single that states, "If I can make it there, I'll make it anywhere." New York, New York was sung by, for 10 points, what Rat Pack member known for his rendition of My Way?
Sinatra?
Yeah, yes. At your age, I'm glad to see you. Frank Sinatra.
Classic.
That's pretty cool. That's good. You're sharp. In one scene, this character wonders if his heat-oppressed brain caused him to imagine a dagger of the mind. He declares, life's but a walking shadow after his ambitious wife dies. For 10 points, name this usurper who fulfills the three witches' prophecies in Shakespeare's Scottish play.
Macbeth.
Macbeth. Exactly. The highest string on a double bass is normally tuned to this note, whose namesake minor scale has 2 flats. The dominant tone in C major is this note, whose major scale has a single sharp. The lowest string on a violin is normally tuned, for 10 points, what note a whole step above F?
G.
G or G natural? Yes, absolutely. This white-tipped sicklebill species of these animals has a curved bill for extracting sugary liquid. It exhibits their ability to rotate their wings nearly full circle, and it can fly upside down or backwards. For 10 points, name these tiny birds that flap their wings extremely rapidly.
Hummingbird?
Hummingbirds. Like the graphics there? One character in this novel takes advantage of a servant's illness to secretly visit the invalid Linton. Hareton eventually wins the love of his widowed cousin Kathy. In this novel, which ends with Mr. Lockwood observing Heathcliff's grave, for 10 points, name this novel by Emily Bronte.
Wuthering Heights?
Wuthering Heights.
That's it. Water, to be fair.
The Bataan Death March of Allied prisoners in World War II took place on Luzon, the largest island in the Pacific island nation,
Philippines?
the Philippines. And I may have mentioned this in one of the other shows, but in elementary school, I had a math teacher that was on the Death March.
Wow.
He was a big guy. That's probably why he was able to survive it. Mr. McNamara was his name. It goes back many years before you were born. This author responded to inaccuracies in Walter Scott's novel, The Pirate, by writing a sea novel titled The Pilot. In another novel by this author, Alice and Cora Monroe are taken captive by Hurons and rescued by Natty Bumppo. For 10 points, name this author of The Last of the Mohegans.
Burroughs?
No.
Pass.
Pass. It-
Common name. Smith.
This, so it's James Fenimore Cooper. This play's monologue has a chorus, Wish for a Muse of Fire, to portray its title king. A ruler who courts the Princess Catherine Pistol recalls the deceased Falstaff in the Shakespeare play that depicts the Battle of Agincourt. For 10 points, name this play about the adult Prince Hal.
Richard III?
No.
Did you guys
I don't know any other plays I read. Don't have that.
Nope.
Nobody?
Hmm.
The Life of Henry V, or another possible answers. This Man's Body, titled is an epic poem by Stephen Vincent Benet that alludes to a song claiming his soul is marching on. This abolitionist was executed in 1859 after being captured trying to arm a slave rebellion. For 10 points, name this man who seized a federal armory at Harper's Ferry.
Brown?
Think of his first name?
John Brown?
John Brown. Can you guess what state he was born in?
No idea.
Connecticut?
Torrington, Connecticut.
It's very
Torrington, Connecticut. Henry Flagler built the overseas railroad in this state, whose islands of Sanibel and Captiva are west of nearby Fort Myers. This state's Biscayne Bay is south of Boca Raton and Fort Lauderdale and east of the Everglades. For 10 points, name this state home to Key West.
Florida.
Florida. The next one might be, well, he wants me to, for a two-body system, this is the shape of an orbit with zero total energy. Ignoring air resistance, a projectile on Earth with an initial horizontal speed will trace out part of this eccentricity of one characterizes for 10 points what class of conic sections, including, in other words, y equals x squared.
Ellipse?
Problem?
Oh.
What was your answer?
Did they buzz in?
Well, we just get it after you guys get it wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a problem.
Okay.
So did one team get the point? Okay. This modern-day country city of Aksum was the capital of one of the earliest Christian kingdoms. Later emperors of this country claimed descent from the biblical queen of Sheba. A Jewish community known as Beta Israel fled for 10 points, what country's capital city of Addis Ababa?
Ethiopia?
Ethiopia. HBO, TV network, HBO airs a satirical news program last week tonight, which is hosted by this British comedian who used to appear on The Daily Show.
John Oliver?
John Oliver.
Yes. Best.
American forces were besieged at Khe Sanh combat base for 5 months. After this event, for 10 points, name this series of coordinated attacks that took place during a New Year holiday in 1968 during the Vietnam War.
Tet Offensive?
Exactly. There was a general at the time named Westmoreland. Before this battle, he said, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. Does anybody know what that would mean? See the light at the end of the tunnel?
The war was about to end?
Yeah, we were winning. Then we had a massive attack. In the end, we pushed back the enemy, but this changed America's attitude towards the Vietnam War. It made much more protest. We were saying we're winning, and this was a massive offensive by the communists. All right. Among the targets of the Tet Offensive were the U.S. Embassy and the national radio station in this capital of South Vietnam. It was renamed Ho Chi Minh City after the war.
Saigon?
Saigon. Saigon. This author drew on his experiences as a colonial police officer to write the novel Burmese Days for 10 points. Named this British author whose novel Animal Farm is an allegory of Stalinism.
George Orwell.
George Orwell. It's not, again, a mental block here. Wheelock founded this school in the 1760s. Robert Frost briefly attended the school. It was also attended by Daniel Webster, who represented it in an 1819 case against William Woodward. The Big Green sports team represent, for 10 points, what Ivy League college in New Hampshire?
Princeton.
I'm sorry?
Princeton.
Dartmouth.
No.
It's Dartmouth.
They got a point. All right.
He answered Dartmouth.
You're gonna have to buzz in there.
I
Okay.
thought he said-
guess.
I was just waiting.
He said Princeton.
And they said Dartmouth.
So they got the point.
Yes.
Okay. Just trying to follow along. This man questioned whether Mexico had shed American blood on American soil in his spot resolutions dealing with the Mexican-American War. His Democrat opponent created the Freeport Doctrine in a debate during an Illinois Senate race. Stephen Douglas debated what man for 10 points?
Lincoln?
Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. In my bias, showing a little bias, he's my favorite president. It's not too hard to have a favorite president. Benito Mussolini espoused his totalitarian political philosophy, which took its name from an ancient Roman symbol of authority. What is the name of this totalitarian?
Fascism.
Fascism. Yes.
Yeah.
This
Both
author
maybe
wrote
both
about
sides.
God, who is both the doubter and the doubt, in his poem Brahma. He proclaimed a foolish consistency in his homoglobin of little minds in an essay that urges readers to trust in themselves. For 10 points, name this transcendentalist author of Self-Reliance.
Henry David Thoreau.
No.
No, we read the freaking essay. Who was the author?
Transcendentalist.
He's a philosopher.
Yeah.
of the-
We can't go, it's just
Yeah.
them, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. No.
Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Emerson.
David
Read the
Gregory
essay.
was its host from 2008 until 2014, when he was replaced by Chuck Todd. For 10 points, name this prestigious Sunday morning talk show which suffered a severe decline in ratings after the death of Tim Russert in 2008.
Meet the Press?
Meet the Press. By the way, Tim Russert spoke at the old Daniel Hand High School.
Did
We saw him at a book signing. It's quite an impressive man. In a telegram to Frederick Remington, this man is said to have declared, "You furnish the pictures and I'll furnish the war." For 10 points, name this publisher of the New York Journal who later built a namesake castle on the California coast.
Hearst?
William Randolph Hearst and St. Simeon. It's a very nice tourist attraction. When two lines intersect, they form 4 angles, pairs of which are congruent to each other. For 10 points, name those pairs of angles which are not adjacent.
Opposite?
Yes, vertical angles or opposite
Vertical,
angles is
vertical.
acceptable, yes. In this process, cancer cells can travel through the lymphatic system from their original site to lymph nodes or other organs. Name the process.
Lymphoma?
No, that's That's a cancer, but no. It's asking what the spread is called.
Oh.
Diffusion.
No, metastasis.
I just think so.
Sylvester Stallone portrayed this boxer in a 1975 film set in Philadelphia.
Muhammad Ali.
He trains by running up the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art. What, Rocky?
Oh, the movie's called Rocky. The person's Rocky Balboa.
Rocky Balboa.
Oh, I didn't know that.
This adjective names both a theory of gases from which the ideal gas law can be derived, and a form of friction weaker than static friction. The formula 1/2 mv squared gives the value of, for 10 points, what type of energy due to motion that is contrasted with potential energy.
Kinetic.
I'm sorry?
Kinetic.
Kinetic, exactly. Pencil and paper ready. Today is Emily's birthday. Her age is prime, 1 past the perfect square, and its 2-digit sum to 10. Examining the 6 2-digit numbers that are 1 more than a square shows that 2 have a digit sum of 10, but 82 isn't prime. With 10 points, how old is Emily?
37.
37, exactly correct. Much of the sun's seismic activity is driven by turbulence from this layer, which is above the radioactive zone. Its top surface hosts the granules of the photosphere. Nobody? Convection, the convective zone or layer. So we're going to take a brief break now. If it's possible, please try to stay in place. It'll make it much easier to get round 2 started. And now we'll start round 2. We have 2 new contestants that have joined the match. Round 2 will follow the same format that was used in round 1. The next slide will contain question 1 of round 2. In this work, Dr. Lennon helps Gabriel Utterson solve a mystery, and Sir Danvers Carey is murdered. One of its characters leaves a note to himself to be read after the effects of a potion wears off. For 10 points, name this Robert Louis Stevenson novel about a transformed doctor.
The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Name this president. He became a lawyer in 1853. He was a general during the Civil War. He only served 1 term as president. His vice president's name was Levi Parsons Morton. He was the grandson of a president.
Benjamin Harrison.
Benjamin Harrison.
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Lewis plans to drive 900 miles to her vacation destination, driving an average of 50 miles per hour. How many miles per hour faster must she average while driving to reduce her total driving time by 3 hours?
10.
10 miles, yes, exactly. This state's legislature is unique as both the only nonpartisan state legislature and the only one that is unicameral. Along with Maine, it does not apportion its electoral votes on a winner-take-all basis. For 10 points, name this state.
Nebraska.
Nebraska. This war included a massacre at No Gun Ri and the UN defense of Busan, the Busan perimeter. After proposing to escalate the war by destroying bridges on the Yalu River and bombing China, Douglas MacArthur was fired by Harry Truman for 10 points, named this 1950s war on an Asian peninsula.
Did we get? The Korean War?
Korean War, 1950 to 1953. The sewage in corroded pipes tends to have high levels of this gas that in humans is the product of aerobic respiration. It is also the most commonly produced greenhouse gas.
Carbon dioxide?
Carbon dioxide, exactly. One form of this condition can cause persistent hiccups in Wallenberg syndrome. When this condition affects the basilar system, it can cause locked-in syndrome. This condition is a leading cause of emphysema. The hemorrhagic type of this condition can be caused by hypertension, while ischemic types can cause one-sided paralysis. For 10 points, name this condition in which blood flow to the brain is interrupted.
Stroke?
Strokes. In this novel, a joker writes the word blood in wine on a wall. A grave robber discovers that Solomon is really John Barsad in this novel, in which a letter found in a chimney incriminates Marquis Saint Ebermond. A trial prosecuted by Dr. Manette and Madame Defarge sentences Charles Darnay to death. And for 10 points, what novel where Sidney Carton sacrifices his life at the guillotine by Charles Dickens?
Tale of Two Cities?
A Tale of Two Cities. This philosopher discussed the roles of habit, impulse, and intelligence in behavior in a book on human nature and conduct. He discussed the concept of body-mind and described existence both precarious and stable in experience and nature. In 1916, in 1916 work, he advocated learning by doing and argued that society's survival rests on schooling. Name this American pragmatist who wrote Democracy in Education. John Dewey. Pencil and paper ready. Mitzi knows that the base B logarithm of 48 is 1.2 and wants to calculate the base B of the logarithm of the cube root of 48. Mitzi uses an approximate logarithm identity to find the answer. For 10 points, what is the base B logarithm of the cube root of 48?
.4.
Yeah, 0.4 or 2, yes, it's acceptable, yes. A 1955 novel by McKinley Cantor is named for this notorious Civil War prison camp commanded by Henry Wirtz, even though it's spelled that way, it's pronounced Wirtz. What is the name of this novel? Andersonville. In fact, that man, Henry Wirtz, was so awful he was hanged at the end of the Civil War. He retired from the NFL in March of 2016. He was a 5-time MVP. He had the most career touchdown passes, 539. He had the most touchdowns in a season, 55.
Peyton Manning?
Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning. This month, John sold figurines in 2 sizes. Large figurines sold for $12 each, and the small figurines sold for $8 each. The amount of money he received from the sales of the large figurines was equal to the amount of money he received from the sales of the small figurines. How many large figurines did John sell this month?
$28.
28, exactly. Name the president related to the following data: PT 109, Profiles in Courage, Cuban Missile Crisis, Lee Harvey Oswald.
Kennedy?
John F. Kennedy. The lymphatic system collects interstitial fluid as it passes through the walls of the smallest blood vessels.
Capillaries.
How do you pronounce it?
Capillaries.
Capillaries, yes. This American depicted Caesar's assassination in his novel, The Ides of March. His other works include The Bridge of San Luis Rey. Who was this author? Thornton Wilder. This man had the kitchen debate with Nikita Khrushchev while vice president under Dwight Eisenhower. He debated John F. Kennedy on television, and members of his re-election team broke into Democratic headquarters. For 10 points, what president resigned after the Watergate scandal?
Nixon.
Richard Milhous Nixon.
Milhouse Max.
Who said he was not a crook. William Bligh is set adrift in the Pacific in 19, a little brain freeze there. William Bligh is set adrift in the Pacific in a 1932 novel by Charles Nordhoff and James Norman Hall that depicts a mutiny on this British ship. The HMS Bounty, or Mutiny on the Bounty. Florence was the home to this Renaissance author who argued that it is better to be feared than to be loved in his treatise. Yes.
Machiavelli.
Machiavelli, yes. This American swimmer ended his career after his 5th Olympic Games in Rio in 2016, where at the age of 31, he won a further 5 gold medals, a silver, taking his tally to 23 Olympic titles and 28 medals, a record unlikely to be beaten anytime soon. He was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder.
Phelps, comma Michaels.
Are we still good with the buzzing
Michael Phelps.
system, or should we just go?
I'm not. I've been going like towards the end, but like.
But why don't we just? Because we don't know where towards the end
we would have gone
is.
like in the middle.
So why don't we
otherwise.
just go like when we know?
How about-
As soon as we know it.
As soon as we know it.
As soon as we know it.
As soon as. All right.
Okay.
We can do that.
And the
And we
answer
can-
was given,
Phelps. Yeah.
Michael Phelps.
Hmm.
This man
I don't know.
advocated for absolute freedom and wildness. Yes.
Thoreau?
Pardon?
Thoreau?
Henry David Thoreau, yes. At the end of this novel, the narrator and her brother are defended
To Kill a Mockingbird.
through killing Mockingbird. This
It's open water
segregation from Alabama ran for president as an American independent in 1968. While campaigning for the Democratic presidential nomination, he was wounded and left permanently paralyzed below the waist in an assassination attempt on May 15, 1972 at Laurel, Maryland.
George Wallace?
Yeah, yes, George Corley Wallace. He was a segregationist,
I've heard of him, but I
but
didn't know who he
before he
was.
died, he seemed to change his views somewhat. Maybe his injury had something to do with that. Most of what we know about Socrates comes from this man,
Plato?
Plato.
Yeah.
The primary
Skull.
use of this
Skull.
element involves bonding it to carbide to make neutron absorbers,
Tungsten.
tungsten. The English musician performed pinwheel, this English musician performed,
Elton John.
you said Elton John much better than I read the question. You are correct.
Hercules, really? That's his middle name, or is it just a nickname?
This 6'4" UConn
Oh,
women's
man.
forward center basketball player graduated from UConn at the end of the second semester
My dad would know
216.
it.
Oh, I think I do know
She
this.
is
Brianna Stewart.
Brianna Stewart.
Yeah.
Brianna Stewart. Identify the 8-letter verb beginning with the letter B that means to give it,
To bestow.
no,
Wait.
Bequeath.
It is.
bequeath.
Counting letters to make sure.
Yeah.
So,
More like 6 out of 8.
missing 2 letters there.
Correctly spelled the word diligence.
Dilligence.
You got it. He's quite diligent.
Oh.
Oh,
Did I say 2 L's?
yes.
Oh, my bad.
Good.
Well, I mean, they can't really. How do we do this now? Because.
0 points.
No
Alright, no
points
points for
awarded.
anyone. Alright.
Spell the word used to refer to a 10th grader in a high school or a college student,
SOPHOMORE.
sophomore. Yes,
Spell.
exactly.
Interesting.
Identify the verb tense used in the following sentence. She will have been there for 4 days by Friday.
Future perfect?
That's perfect, future perfect. The 4 front teeth in both the lower and upper
Oh.
jaws are called what?
Incisors.
Incisors. The coded message, Geronimo yes,
Bin Laden?
Osama bin Laden. A carbohydrate must include carbon, hydrogen, and what other element?
Oxygen?
Oxygen. Translate the
Whatever.
Spanish word suerte,
Luck.
luck. And there are a number of other possibilities, fortune, sword, lucky, hopefully, but the best probably is luck.
Buena suerte.
In one novel by this author, Tom Driscoll grows up in slavery.
Mark Twain?
Mark Twain or Samuel Langhorne Clemens. On May 20th, 1927, he took off from Roosevelt Field on Long Island, New York. Yes,
Lindbergh?
Charles Lindbergh. He was very much pro-Germany before we got into World War II. He also suffered the kidnapping of his child. It's one of the most famous kidnappings in history. He became the CEO of Apple Incorporated,
Tim Cook?
Tim Cook, or Timothy Cook.
I knew that one.
Me too.
He was born May 28th, 1971, in Miami, Florida.
Just go.
Yes,
Rubio?
Yes.
Oh,
Marco Rubio. He said he was sick of the Senate, but then he went for reelection and he got reelected to the Senate, so go figure.
The legend.
This is a two-part question.
Uh-oh.
For 10 points, who said the following? And for what event or occasion?
Lincoln at the Gettysburg Address.
Lincoln at the Gettysburg Address, and this is kind of interesting. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address was approximately 272 words. Lincoln spoke for approximately 2 minutes. The man that spoke before him's name was Edward Everett. We don't know, nobody knows what he said. And Edward Everett apparently had a bowel condition, so they had a tent in case he had to go to the bathroom during his 2-hour speech. But this was Abraham Lincoln, and just think how hard Lincoln was leading the Civil War, and he lost one of his children in February of 1862. He lost Willie. So this is all on his mind. Could you imagine being president in the Civil War? A cellular phone service contract requires customers to pay $45 a month for basic service in addition to 15 cents for each text message. If a customer's bill is $61.50, how many text messages did the customer send?
110.
Exactly 110.
Better calculator.
Wafers of this type of material are used by factories known as fabs. These materials can become N or N- or P- type through doping and can be made from staircase elements like or silicon. Computer chips are made from, for 10 points, what materials with intermediate conductivity? What materials with intermediate conductivity? Semiconductors.
That was that. So,
The answer to this question is a character from the play Hamlet. Hamlet stabs the father
it was
of
Polonius.
Polonius, that's it. This man launched a raid that caught the U.S. cavalry guarding Columbus, New Mexico unaware. In March of 1916, John Pershing began a punitive expedition against, for 10 points, what Mexican revolutionary general? Pancho Villa. Pancho Villa.
Oh.
Coming to the end of round 2. This ruler met Francis I of France at the field of the cloth of gold. He blamed Thomas Wolsey.
Henry
Yes.
V? Fourth?
Pardon me?
No, wait.
Pick one.
Henry the Fourth. Henry the Fourth, I'm gonna say?
No.
Dang it.
The other side?
Henry the Fifth.
Henry VIII, I think.
Henry VIII.
Oh.
You'd get there eventually.
Roman numerals.
Good job, Karen.
I knew it had a V in there
Let's
somewhere. but-
Let's take a brief, again, break, and please stay in place so we set up the final round, please. Now we're going into the final bonus round. This will be a little different. We'll have only 3 questions, and each question will be worth 20 points as opposed to 10 points earlier. So let's get to the slide 3. Emma takes a job with a starting salary of $42,000. Her salary increases by 4% at the beginning of each year. What will be Emma's salary to the nearest $1,000 at the beginning of year 10?
$59,779.
No.
Well, do you have anything?
I don't know if this is right.
Let's go for it.
Yeah, just go for it.
All right. 58,800.
60,000.
Wait.
I really wish you got power function here.
Yeah, I know.
That's the newest
All right,
thousand, sorry.
the next bonus question is 20 points. Name the president, the only president to remain a bachelor.
Buchanan?
Yes, James Buchanan.
Hmm.
All right, the next one, you'll need pencil and paper. Trixie gets a 10% commission on her first $1,000 in sales, and after 20%. After that, and wants to earn a $500 commission. To find the needed total sales to get the $500, Trixie must first subtracts the portion earned at the 10% rate.
3,000.
Exactly, 3,000. But that ends the competition. Let's hold on a while. Let me ask you questions. Warren, what did you think about the winner of the presidential election?
I was unhappy, and I thought it was generally a little bit odd that the popular vote could have been so close, but the electoral vote was so off.
That's the system. Patrick, do you have any views on the election?
I thought it was interesting the way the media reported on it beforehand and how wrong everyone got it and what that means about our country. And
How about James O'Connor?
I found it interesting how there's so much poll herding going on at the end that literally every poll you looked at said 4%, which indicates like people were actually afraid to deviate from that and give Trump any chance of winning, and so that's why you see that really high polling margin of error where Clinton was polling 4% ahead and then ended up about 1%.
If you don't want to answer this question, that's fine. What do you think of Donald Trump?
I think there's a lot of radical things that he has said, but I think there's also, after becoming president-elect, he's backed away from a lot of those radical things, and I think oftentimes in politics people like to say radical things because it gets them certain factions of support, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of people involved in government that prevent people from doing absolute crazy things. Like they're
Checks and balances.
Yeah, that's why we have 3 branches of government, so we can't just elect a crazy man and have our country burn.
But you know that one man can push the atomic button, though.
That's
true.
the worry.
Jared, what do you think of the election?
Well,
Yeah, again, if you don't want to say, if you don't want to answer, you don't have to.
so I didn't like either of them. So for a while before the election, I just accepted that someone I didn't like was going to be president. So I've accepted that by now.
Brian, what was your opinion?
I admire Trump as a businessman. I'm not sure how he'll do as a politician, but I think it'll be interesting.
He said when he sued, he never settles. He never settles.
Except for that time he settled on that case where he cheated somebody out of $1 million.
And
But
he's
you know.
been bankrupt a number of times also. Avery,
Yeah, I was along with Garrett. I didn't like either of them, so I was kind of. It was interesting seeing Trump win and how wrong the polls were, but like, it kind of made sense because like how like angry the population is at this point. They kind of want someone who's gonna.
I
burn
think
the-
both candidates were flawed.
Yeah, but Trump was more the outsider who was kind of like promising to burn the system down, and that's what people wanted. So that's what they got.
All right, I want to thank you very much. I started this about 5 years ago with a thought, and the administration of both high schools was very nice. I'm a retired school teacher, and I wanted to do something useful, and this is going to be our last quiz bowl, because it's getting to be too much at this point. But I thank you very, very much for showing up, participating. Everybody did very well, and I think the sportsmanship, can you use that word? Sportsmanship. I think the sportsmanship was great, and you were polite to each other, and you can't ask for anything more. Do we have the score? Young guys, what does that say? I can't even read it.
520 to 290.
Okay, both teams played very, very, very well. And once again, thank you for coming.
Thank
That's
you.
the end of our program. Thank you. No, you kids were good.
Told me